right, at 7 o'clock, I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. Clerk, please call roll.
Dr. Ramona Becker?
Here.
Diane McDonald?
Here.
Betty Martine?
Here.
Peggy O'Donnell?
Here.
Diane Wynn?
Here.
We have a quorum there.
Wonderful, thank you. And with all of our meetings, we open with a moment of silent prayer, and I would just ask tonight just to give a quick report. You may have heard on the news around 10 o'clock this morning, two of our police officers were involved in a traffic accident, fault of another driver, but they were both hospitalized with minor injuries, but quite a few bumps and scrapes and bruises. They're going to be sore for a few days, so I would ask that you keep our two officers, Detective Davis and Officer Davis, both are out of the hospital now. They were kept in for observation, so I am happy to report that, but so you guys can know and keep them in your thoughts here as we go into our moment of silent prayer. Amen. Now please rise and join us in the saying of the Pledge of Allegiance to the American flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I want to welcome everyone to our first meeting in August 1st here. So this is the regular meeting of your Bel Aire City Council. Before getting into our agenda, I want to just make a quick announcement to everybody watching at home. This does replace, so you still have 28 minutes to get down to the firehouse for a National Night Out. That goes until 7:30. I know several of the council members were down there prior to tonight's meeting here, and Lions Club were giving snow cones away. I think that was probably about the most longest popular line there. We had a dunk tank. There's some bouncy houses, hot dogs, water. The Bel Aire Police Department, along with the Sheriff's Department, had a lot of nice educational giveaways, as did the Sheriff's Department. The Wichita Wingnuts were down there. So again, just want to thank everybody who participated in National Night Out, and let everybody know that that's still going on until 7:30. So like I said, if you're watching at home, you can always watch us on YouTube in the morning. So go enjoy. We only have two items actually on our agenda today. I think this may be about one of the shortest meeting agendas I've ever seen. One is to hold a public hearing, and the second item is then to establish a public hearing at a later date. Do want to let council know that I would like to ask for a 10 to 15 minute executive session. I think you guys saw the email from our city manager at the end of the meeting tonight. So with that, we will move into the consent agenda, which consists only of the minutes of the July 18th city council meeting.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as listed and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
First and second, are there any questions or comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign, and it passes. Okay, moving into discussion and approval of appropriations, ordinance 17-15. Appropriations, this meeting totals over $1.2 million. This is extremely high. Especially those who are following us and watching us. I do want to let everybody know that $842,500 of that went for various capital improvement projects that took place in the courtyards at Elk Creek, Deer Run, as well as at Rock Spring. And all of these are reimbursed to the city by special assessment, but that is why it is so high for 17-15. And of course, we also have the monthly trash service That's about 30,000. About 46,000 went for our water, and then $150,000 went for our debt service payment to the CCUA. So a little explanation about why our appropriations ordinance seems so high this time around.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve appropriations ordinance 17-15.
Second?
First and second, any questions or comments?
I have a question.
Yes.
It's just curiosity, but I've been seeing this on the appropriations, and it's a company, have to get my glasses on to read this one, because it printed so tiny. Danixo Business Solutions. Is that a local company, or what do they really?
That I don't know. Do you know that? What was the name of the company?
DANIKSCO Business Solutions.
Danisco Business. Oh, office supplies. I think Ted our finance director's here. I think we were buying from Robert's Hutch line some of our office supplies,
Oh,
and is that who we switched to?
No, this could be a. Without looking, I can run down and look at it real quick for you.
What page?
It's on different categories. It's under mayor and council and non-departmental. It's broke up. It's office supplies, it says.
I'll run down and look at it real quick.
Do we want to hold off on approving, or?
Yeah, no, I'm not. I've been seeing it, and I Googled it. Doesn't everybody do that? To see if they were local or what they did, and I really had a hard time coming up with it. So, and it's always been kind of scattered around.
It's
So I was
split
just
up all
curious
the-
as to what it is.
It's
and-
on each category.
Yeah, because it's spread throughout there, yeah, and it's
right.
on there regularly, so.
Right.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I do have a couple of comments. Number one, I see Superior Rubber Stamp and Seal. It's a signature stamp, and I'd just like it known that I don't approve of signature stamps with the city. The second thing would be, I had to almost get a magnifying glass to read this. It is so small, and if they're going to, I know they're probably trying to save paper, but do it front and back and make it back the way it was, and that's all I have.
I'd like to second that because, I don't like to print it out because I really like to save paper. And it's very hard for me to turn it around when it's set up in this PDF style,
If you,
Yeah, just flip
it's
it.
touchsome, if you just do that, it
Well, I
just
know,
enlarges it.
Automatically.
I know, but
She's
it's
talking about
backwards.
a personal computer.
Yeah.
Oh, you can go and highlight it and go up under the font.
Well, when it's set in there sideways, it's, I couldn't get it to turn over. And usually in a PDF file, I can get it to turn over, but I couldn't.
Do you have
get
your
this-
automatic rotate not turned off maybe? Because it should just automatically rotate for you. when you
Yeah,
turn it over,
you'd
and then you
think,
can-
but it's not.
May have automatically.
Mine did at home.
Yeah, and mine's turned off before, and I just have to go through settings and reset that.
No,
But,
okay, I'll try that.
yeah, we can look at that because, yeah, like I said, on the tablet, that's what I love about it. We're able to enlarge it so
It's all-
easily and everything.
Yeah.
So,
I still think I like the old way they did it better.
I don't care if it's 20 pages. This is horrible.
any other questions or comments? If not, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next, we'll go ahead and move into our public hearing. State statutes required that a public hearing be held before the adoption of a municipal budget. The proposed 2018 city budget was published in the Ark Valley News. We also have a copy on the website for review. And council has spent better part of the last 3 workshops creating the proposed 2018 budget. So the public hearing allows property owners, and if there's any concerned citizens, the ability to speak on the proposed budget before we move forward with that. So I hereby do open this public hearing and ask if there's anyone interested in speaking on the budget at the public hearing to come to the podium and state your name and address. Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Citizens' concerns, I received a card from Mr. Gary O'Neill, would like to come address us. Gary lives at 4967 North Hillcrest, and is no stranger to any of us up here, so welcome.
Okay, thank you. You've already given my address, so I can expect
I'll
to
help
get
you out.
my driveway full of flyers tomorrow. I just wanted to let you know I attended a public hearing on the county budget last night, and I wanted to let the governing body know and the citizens of Bel Aire that your senior director, Jenny Benitez, was there, and she spoke to the commission regarding additional funding for the seniors of Bel Aire, and she did an excellent job, and I wanted to give her an atta girl for being there and representing the city as well as she did. I'll also have to say there's an old grouch like me who showed up, and I spoke also. And there were 4 other senior groups in the cities of Mulvane, Clearwater, Hayesville, and Bel Aire, the 4, that were supposedly going to receive $73,000, split 4 ways essentially, additional funding for their seniors because of the excellent programming that they have done at the behest not only of the citizens of each city but by the county Department of Aging. And it was their understanding, although it may have come down to semantics, that they had been approved for this additional funding. But as I told the county commissioners, maybe the words should have been that they were recommended for the additional funding. And after much discussion, I think there were about 10 of us that spoke to the commissioners during the budget hearing. We pointed out to them, to Commissioner Howell, who represents Mulvane, Commissioner O'Donnell, who represents Hayesville and Clearwater, and Commissioner Unruh, who represents Bel Aire, that we'd appreciate if they go back to staff. And we also pointed out that the $73,000 out of the $407 million budget that they have, I told them was 0.0001976, whatever that is, of a percent. It is nothing. And a gentleman from Derby got up to speak, and he pointed out that the county had spent more for one restroom in a park than what this $73,000 would have been split over 4 cities. And I said, maybe $73,000 doesn't mean a lot to the county, but it means a lot to these 4 cities. So after 10 people spoke, roughly 10, some of the commissioners decided that they wanted to renew this request with staff. They asked that the budget director, they asked them some pretty pertinent questions regarding mill levies and additional funding they were going to get because property assessment valuations have gone up. There's money there. The commissioners just need to make a decision to fund the senior programs in the county. And we also pointed out that if they're going to ask their staff to go out and ask these programs to provide these services, then they need to fund these services. That the citizens are tired of these unfunded mandates that come down from federal and state and even county governments where they want you to provide these services until you got to provide it, but they don't give you the funding to do that with. So after everyone spoke, the commissioners agreed to go back and they are reviewing it. So hopefully before the final budget is done, or if they just move some line items around, that hopefully these 4 centers, senior groups will come up with some money. Quickly, I got to get out of here, get back to National Night Out. Lions Club has been through 160 pounds of ice so far making snow cones, and I've got to go make some more snow cones. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much
Gary,
for going,
thank you
Gary.
for standing up for our seniors. Really appreciate that.
Okay. Any other citizens' concerns? Okay.
The Danisco Office Solutions is actually Office Plus. That's their formal corporate name, I guess. I looked up on their W-9. So yeah, they're a local company. We get paper, pens, and such.
Make sure you-
Local in Wichita.
Got your
It's not the
exercise,
one
too.
in Hutchinson? It is here.
Here in Wichita.
Good, good.
We're not in Wichita.
We'll go ahead and move to reports, and we'll start with Dr. Ramona Becker.
Well, I went to the night out tonight, and it was great, and good to see so many people from Bel Aire out there with their families and their dogs, and everybody was having a good time. And so that's just a wonderful event, and I hated to leave, but we all had to get up here for our meeting, and it was just fun to see everybody out there. And I just want to make one other comment. I really do appreciate our reporter, Jason. You know, in this day and age when we hear all this hoopla about fake news, I thought you did a real good job of reporting on our meeting last time, and were very accurate, and I just thought it read well, and you did a good job. So I appreciate that, and I just wanted to mention that.
Sorry, I mean Taylor.
Taylor, I'm sorry. I got your name wrong. I didn't bring my paper with me. And I'm terrible on names, so forgive me.
Anything else?
I think that's all, Mayor.
Wonderful.
Oh, wait, I do have one other thing. I noticed in the mayor's column, you were talking about all the great things we've done and the governing body has done and working on the budget and everything. But I want to point out, you forgot to mention the council, because the council has been working on the budget and all these wonderful things, and I didn't see that mentioned in there, so I just thought that was a little oversight. I wanted to jab you a little
Totally
bit about
inadvertently if it was, because I know, it seems like I always try to say your governing body in all of my other columns, so yeah, apologize for that, yeah.
that. Okay.
All right. All right. Let's finish it up.
I'm going to talk for several minutes, Mr. Mayor. I have received one email from a gentleman. I won't give his name. It's not important to broadcast names. But I'll read the email. It said, I will send this to all of you because Mr. McDonald has never responded to my emails. I don't recall ever not responding to an email when I get it. Yes, Mr. McDonald, you insulted the committee of volunteers at the last council meeting. If you doubt that, just ask them. It doesn't do any good to rant and rave to try to convince others that you didn't. I work with approximately 200 volunteers every week at a local nonprofit. You must encourage and appreciate them or they won't stick around very long. You must also give them some guidance so they feel a sense of accomplishment. Encourage them, don't discourage them. I have lived in Bel Aire for 30 years. After buying our house from Coach so-and-so, it is time to get off the sidelines. What committee can I serve on? My answer is whatever committee you want to volunteer to, that's up to you for this gentleman. In addition to that, I've had 12 to 15 people come to my house and talk to me personally and tell me that there are rumors and there are stories going on about me that are particularly untrue. And so I'd like to address that. I'm called an alcoholic in these comments, and I am and I do drink wine. So if and a lot of people in the world drink wine, and if everybody who drinks wine is an alcoholic, we have a worldwide alcoholic problem. I'm mentally deranged and I'm mentally deficient, and I'd like to address that. I was also implied that I am a redneck from a small place somewhere. And those who don't know what a redneck is, it's a derogatory term, and it means people who are usually prosecuted in other countries. We accept them in the United States. They don't have an education, so they have to work on farms. They pick strawberries, tomatoes, asparagus, corn, and with doing so, their face is down. and their necks get sunburned, if they're Caucasian, and their necks get sunburned, and they're called rednecks. But they do hard work, and it still is a derogatory term. And so I want to say that I am not from a small place somewhere. I am from the city of Philadelphia, and if you think that Philadelphia is a small place somewhere, then your education has been remarkably just, not, it's just not there. Anyway, so in reference to the small place somewhere, I'm going to give you a background education now. I was not able to go to college after high school. My parents couldn't afford it. I had to wait 4 or 5 years to be able to get the money, to borrow the money to do so, and I've done that. And the small college that I went to was called St. Joseph's College, and now it's St. Joseph's University. There were 1,500 males at that school when I was there. There are now 8,000. It's on 150 plus acres, or approximately 150 acres, in the city of Philadelphia, not outside the city. And it's a beautiful campus. And it's run by Jesuits. And if you go to a school who are run by Jesuits, you must take philosophy. I was a French major. And so members of this council know that I can put together a logical syllogism, because I was taught it there. Not that I'm smart or anything like that, but I was taught how to do that. That's major premise, minor premise, conclusion, and if you use the Eastern European method, it's premise, antithesis, and synthesis, and I can do both. And I do that often up here. People don't recognize it, but I do. So that small school, if you play if anybody likes basketball, you know that St. Joseph's is, even though a small school, has been prominent in the NCAA. As a matter of fact, in the 20s there was no NCAA, and they went without being defeated by any university in the United States. So in fact, at one time in the 20s, they were the USA champions. So a little more background. Coming from Philadelphia, just outside of Philadelphia, there was a woman who became a famous actress. Her name is Grace Kelly. And she had several brothers, but one brother was on the 1936 8-oared, we called it Skull, and but it's a rowing boat. And Hitler was there, and the Olympics were held in Germany, and the Germans were way, favored to win. Well, the USA won the gold medal. And so when I was at St. Joseph, I met a friend, and we went around together for at least a year. And I went to his house, his father's house. His father was a wholesale grocer, and he had a house down what we called the shore, on the water. And I saw these oars crossed. And I said to his father, I said, what's this all about, And he said, well, that's my son. He won the Canadian National Championship. He's an American, but he was able to compete. And he said, over here, he said he won the USA National Championship. So, and he was taught by this brother of Grace Kelly, who won the gold medal. So that gives you a little bit of background. And in addition to that, when you go to a Jesuit school, you have philosophy. I was a French major, but you're a philosophy minor. So that little place that small and somewhere is where I went. And what else do I want to say about that? And so my wife and I were in the Peace Corps. As you know, I speak Nepali, I speak some French, and I speak English, which is my native language. So I'm not a redneck from little small someplace somewhere. As a matter of fact, the tree board has true volunteers, as I've said in the past, and we have trees over various places in the United States, and I won't say anything more about that. But the tree board is true volunteers. And so the charges that I'm an alcoholic and mentally deficient and mentally deranged and mentally in decline, I think should be recognized as untrue. And the people who are making those claims should understand logic. If you have a false premise, you have a false conclusion. There are some exceptions to that, but they're very, very rare. False premise, false conclusion, and so these premises are false. Their conclusions about me are false. But if people don't appreciate the fact that I am a true volunteer, if they want to get rid of me, there's ways to do it. You could impeach me or recall me. That'd be very expensive for the city. Or just wait 4 months and just don't vote. Don't vote for me, and that's okay. It won't hurt my feelings. I don't have to be here. And the Attorney General of Missouri, I think a week or two ago, announced that he was suing medical doctors, salesmen, and pharmaceutical companies. And that's because they lied about the product that they were selling. The product did one good thing. It stopped pain. But it did other things. It changed personalities, and not just one or two. You don't get a state attorney general involved with traffic tickets or not paying fines. These people are responsible. They're the chief legal officers of the state, and we have 2 states at least that are suing these companies. And they're suing them because they produce something called oxycodone, hydrocodone, morphine, codeine, and tramadol. And so I had shoulder surgery in January, and I didn't know it. Nobody told me, but they infused me with these drugs. And when I was up at Mayo Clinic, I go there once a year just for a general checkup. And I told the doctors this, and they did not disagree. Up at Mayo Clinic, they don't criticize other doctors around the country. They just keep their mouth shut. And I said, I'm going to cut this right off in April because my personality is changing. And they said, okay. So I did. So I haven't had any drugs since April when I cut them all off. But what happens is there's a residual effect, and these drugs stay in your fatty tissue, and they still affect you in some way. Not as bad as it was. I used to get rashes, and I don't get rashes anymore. But so the reason that I was apparently loquacious, and maybe I was more aggressive than I normally am, but it's because of those drugs. And so I thought I'd explain that, and I think I have. And if you believe it or not believe it, that's up to you. And I tell you what the consequences are. I already mentioned that. So if you want to get rid of me, that's fine. And I have nothing more to say, Mr. Mayor.
Ronaldo?
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I also want to echo what Dr. Becker said. I was able to go to the National Night Out over at the fire station, and I just want to thank the Lions Club and the police officers that are over there, and the EMS and the firefighters and everybody else. A lot of county officials, most of us were there. So thank you for that. It was wonderful. I also wanted to give a report on the Chisholm Creek Utility Authority. We had our meeting last Thursday, and unfortunately there's very little to report. The energy audit report was due for us this August, and basically what happened was the owner said he's sorry, but it's not going to happen until probably fall now, and I won't mention other companies that he said were to blame, but I just wanted to let the council know that unfortunately we are not where we should be on that. And I know you were there, Mr. Mayor, and Mrs. Martine and Ellie sat in until Ken got there. So anyway, if you guys have questions about it, we can try to explain more maybe at the workshop, but there's really nothing happening right now, which is kind of frustrating. The good news for the cities is that they're holding true to our contract and we're not going to get charged any more money. They promised. So that's the good thing. And in the long run, hopefully we will save lots of money because as the mayor said tonight, there's a lot of money for the water and sewer that came out of this. So this is supposed to help us as we expand and figure out how to do things better. So anyway, I hope next month maybe we'll have a better report for you from the CCUA. And that's all my report. Oh, can I say one thing?
Please.
I did get a new granddaughter last Monday. Sorry. I know that's probably you're not supposed to do personal stuff, but Lainey Grace was born on the 24th. So thank you for letting me brag for a second.
Congratulations.
Thanks. Sorry.
Ms. Nguyen?
Well, all of us want to say something about the night out. I was over there, and one of the things that I noticed, and this is not the first year for this by any means, and it's basically kind of put on by law enforcement and the firemen and the public servants there, but the young man who was in the dunk tank is going to be there all night long. He was loving it. And he was sassing with the kids, and and the little bitty ones, they were letting him run up and hit the thing, so he'd fall down again. And it was just good to see somebody having that much fun. And yet, I assume probably if something had happened and they needed to leave on a call, he'd have pulled on his outfit over those wet clothes and what have you and took off, and does a very good job. Kind of thing. But it was just fun to watch him. I was watching him and all the little kids. I mean, it was kid magnet kind of thing. On a more serious note, I did attend the REAP Executive Board meeting last week. And again, we're in the process of searching for a good promo or something to believe in or something for everybody to get behind, and yet when you are working with about 10 counties and a number of different cities and that kind of thing, it's not always easy. Well, we had a lively meeting using some old school techniques, nothing with iPads and that kind of thing. We're scribbling ideas up on up on an easel kind of thing, and but it really was productive because of the number of people who were there and the number of different ideas and how they would repeat from one category to another. And so they came up with 4 or 5 really strong things. And now a committee will be working a little bit more with that and bring that back. And so I think we're making progress. And if I can say this, Jackie and I had a conversation. She had called me to talk to me about something, and then we were playing telephone tag kind of thing. So I stopped by here the other morning on my way back from El Dorado. And one of the things that came out of our conversation, which did last longer than 15 minutes because we took several other conversations on while we were talking. But one of them was, as I said to her, I said, I have a real problem with communication or a struggle because I see on my home phone, which is the one that I like to be called because it has an answering machine on it, that nobody ever leaves a message. And I said, we've been having this even at my office where we have an emergency phone number, after hours phone number, and it's the same kind of thing, very simple to operate, but please leave your name and number and someone will call you back. I mean, this isn't a 10-button tree, this is 2 buttons and you're there. And people aren't leaving messages. And so sometimes you can hear them breathe and we'll get a call anyway, but that doesn't help us solve their problem. And I mentioned to her that the message that I have on my answering machine is rather terse. It doesn't say my name or anything like that. It just said, you know, please leave a message, not in a nasty tone, but please leave a message. There's a reason for that. I've had a stalker in the past, and I don't care if they're only stalking you by phone. It's a little disconcerting. And so, and when you're talking about then rumors start that, you know, we're not communicating back, or, you know, when you didn't get an email, because that's happened to me. I haven't gotten an email sometimes at work that somebody said they sent. So I'm just saying to those who are watching, please do communicate with us. Just give me your name and the phone number you want me to call back. I had at least 2 744 numbers that I can identify from what I do at work that were just spoofing phone numbers. They're just spoofing 744 numbers. And so I'm not calling them back, you know, a waste of my time. But I do want to communicate with people. If you've got something to say to me, and I'm sure that most of the other council members agree, make it known that you want to. And Jackie told me something I didn't know, and I don't know whether the rest of you know, that if they call the office first, you know, then she will have them say, you know, here's the number to call, but please leave a message if you call. So, you know, just kind of an aside, but something that I think is important in improving our communications with our constituents. And that's all I really had.
Mayor, could I say one more thing? I'm sorry. I'd like to echo the same thing. I have a really bad time getting email through the city email. I have no problems with the other email boxes I have, my home email, my college email, and all these others. And it is better now than it used to be, but I'm going to have to talk to him again, because I want you to know I was just peeking over here at Guy's email, and it's got my name on it. I never got it. I never got it. So if somebody expects me to answer that email, I'm sorry, but I didn't get it. And I just checked my email tonight before I came over here, and it's not in there. So I'm going to have to talk to our, and see if they can figure out what's going on. But we have the best of intentions of always responding to everybody that contacts us, and I really try hard to do that, and I know everybody else does too, but sometimes we just don't get it. And sometimes it's technology, and I don't know why this is happening. I'm a technology person, and it's really frustrating. I'll just say that. So, thank you.
Councilmember Martin?
Well, I would echo what Diane and Dr. Becker said. Pardon me, Mrs. Wynn. But I have caller ID. So I call them back. Well, I didn't call you. I said, well, your number's on my phone. And the same thing with the emails. The last email I got was from a gentleman over on Edinburgh, and it was concerning fireworks. So evidently, if this is a recent email that Mr. McDonald got, I didn't get it either. And it would come on the laptop. But other than that, I did attend the CCUA meeting last Thursday. The mayor of Park City was gracious enough to, it was, an hour?
At least.
We went through their new building, and boy, I said, I want to come up here to work. It is beautiful. They did a fantastic job. He said they moved in a day and a half. The other building where the old City Hall was is up for sale, and they hope to sell that. But, oh, that building. Their police department is, don't let our chief go up there. I did attend National Night Out. I did see a lot of old friends that used to come in and harass me from the water department tonight. Got to meet their kids, their grandkids, and all that stuff, and just had a real good time. And that's all I have, Mayor.
I have no formal report this evening. I also was up there at National Night Out. Just want to thank all of those involved with that, and thank you, Councilmember O'Donnell, for the CCA report. And it was nice to have us all there. And I guess upcoming, we have you started to see signs. The Hot Dogs Bull Party is coming up in August. Right here we are already in August, talking back to school. So it's time to start looking out for school buses. I've seen a couple already out doing training routes. So just to give a little word of caution, to be a little extra cautious about that. With that, we'll move it to City Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have been working recently and plan to present you all some ordinances and policy proposals, hopefully presenting those to you within the season that include making some changes to our drone ordinance, private swimming pool regulations, and the process that the Recreation Center uses to screen volunteers. So those are the ordinances that I'm working on and hope to present to you shortly. Of course, I can adjust that schedule based on your priority list, but that's what I'm kind of zoning in on now. Councilmember Wynn and I visited, and one of the questions that came up was her concern that there is a suspended voter list that's circulating. You may have seen it. It's being passed around through different organizations. I've seen a copy on the Eagles website, and she wanted to make sure that citizens of Bel Aire knew how that suspended voter list process happens, and maybe even some concerns for citizens who had been in Bel Aire prior to incorporation, how that might affect them as well. So I just wanted to cover a little bit of that with you very generally. So first, what places someone on the suspended voter list? And the short answer to that is basically a person who initiates registration. So they pick up the registration form and begin filling it out and turn it in, but it's incomplete. So it's that trigger that an incomplete registration form would put someone on the list, whether it's incomplete because they failed to provide the proof of their date of birth, proof of citizenship, if it's the first time they're voting, whether they submitted an illegible application, or just forgot to sign it. All those reasons can make someone's voter registration invalid. And so what that person would have done is filled it out, thought they were turning it in, left the office or the library or wherever they're turning in their voter registration form, if they're at a drive or something, left the form there and walked off, and the form is incomplete. That incomplete form places that person on the list. So the next question would be, well, are new citizens coming into Bel Aire who haven't updated their addresses also on that list? No. Those citizens would not be automatically placed on that list. People who are just moving into Bel Aire would have an opportunity to register, to update their registration through the DMV or going to the Sedgwick County Elections Office, or on election day, that person could go to their old polling place and, attempt to vote there, and that's where the election officials would ask them to update their information right there on the spot, and they would review it. And according to the Secretary of State, the overwhelming majority of those forms are reviewed right there and they're fine. So that person wouldn't be placed on the suspended voter list.
But would they have to do a provisional ballot?
Yes, they may have to do a provisional ballot if they're at their old precinct. Sometimes if they go to their new precinct and the time frame for updating a registration has expired, because you have to update your registration 21 days before the election. Mm-hmm. So if you go on election day to your new precinct, you haven't updated your information, you may be asked at that new precinct to fill out a provisional ballot and update your information on the spot. So both of those ways, either going to the old precinct and updating their information or going to vote at the new precinct and updating their information would be how a new citizen in Bel Aire would get their information corrected. Finally, a citizen who lived in Bel Aire prior to incorporation and now Bel Aire has become incorporated, well, before their address would have been listed as, 123 Elm Street, Wichita, Kansas. And now the address has changed because the jurisdictional line has changed. That in and of itself does not suspend a voter's registration. Basically, the general rule is if the house hasn't moved, but the government has changed the street address, the government will update that person's registration record themselves. If there's something more that needs to be done, rare cases where, you have to have everybody come in and do something, that person will get a notification, but they will not be placed on that voter registration list because according to the Secretary of State, that's the government's problem. We initiated that, and so it's on the government to solve it. So that's kind of the overview of how the suspended voter registration list might impact citizens of Bel Aire. Most of the time, if you see a citizen of Bel Aire on that list, it's because they failed to complete their voter registration form, and they can contact the Secretary of State or go to the the Sedgwick County Election Office. They can go to the election office website and get everything updated that way. So, does anybody have any questions for me on that or on some of the ordinances I'll be working on?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I have a question. On the voter registration, we used to, many, many years ago, and I think the girls still do it, they have the voter registration cards from Sedgwick County Election Office. And normally it's in the packet when they come in and sign up for water. I'm not sure if they're still getting those or not, but that's one way that they can change. Like if they move from Wichita, Andover, or out of the state into Bel Aire, they can fill out that card and mail it in, voter's registration. The other thing is, maybe I misunderstood, but you said changes to the ordinance on drones. I'm not aware we even have one.
Right. Okay, so I did misspeak. We do not have an ordinance on drones. Any law that impacts drones is captured in other aspects of our statute, of our ordinance. So just making a new ordinance on drones.
I just want to make sure I wasn't missing something.
No, you're right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, can I just add something? Thank you for that report. And I just wanted to follow up because I teach high school government, and kids will ask me for voter forms when they turn 18. But I think a lot of those people get placed because you can't just send it in now. You have to send everything with it. And I don't know that the public catches that you must go ahead, send 2 forms of ID when you mail that in. You have to do, your birth certificate or your passport or something, because you used to could just send that form in. And I know I had some kids come back and say, why haven't I got it? And I said, well, did you include all that when you did it? And they didn't. And that causes people to go on that list. So I thought I might tell the public, you can't just send in that form
By itself.
Yeah, you have to send in the documentation at that time.
Right.
So
Is
anyway.
that for just first-time voters?
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
Okay.
to vote, yes,
Yeah.
but,
The
you
citizenship.
used to, could
Yeah.
just send
Well,
it, and you can't now.
Older people that are moving into Bel Aire,
Sure.
they can just get the form
Right.
and send it in.
Or do it when you get your car license, the motor
Right.
voter law, so
Right.
that's easy.
But it's easy
how I
for
do
them if Bel Aire
Sure.
has the cards, when they
Sure.
fill out the water and it's in the packet, they'll say, well, we have a voter registration and you're moving, you got 21 days to
Right.
change it.
Right. Very good. Thank you, I just wanted to follow that, that's what a lot of people forget.
Mr. Mayor, I have an additional comments about drones. I was speaking with the city attorney this past week, and we had that survey come back, and people really want to have a area where they can sell and buy vegetables. And So I suggested this right across from City Hall on the east side, that we could construct just very simple structures, little stalls with 4x4s and a little bit of a roof that wouldn't cost the city a great deal. And the people could come from anywhere, whether it's Bel Aire or some other place, to sell their vegetables or their plants, whatever they're selling. And then in the wintertime, I had a long conversation with a drone person. He's got 17 to 19 drones, and he's an associate of, how about the second best drone flyer in the world. His name is Brain. He calls himself Brain Drain, but he's the second fastest in the world. Anyway, and he lives in southeast Wichita. So I suggested, it was suggested that in the wintertime, that these guys like to fly their drones under tables, around objects, and under roofs, and they like complicated things that they can try to avoid. And so we had that conversation, and I'm going to suggest that this council, at some time in the near future, consider constructing something across the street, because we have, I don't know how many acres over there, but we have a lot of acres, and to enable people to come in the summertime to sell their products, and in the wintertime allow the people who fly drones to fly in that area too. And because I also didn't want to have drones. I thought we needed an ordinance to stop people from flying over swimming pools and watching some people sunbathe or whatever, but I was advised that that's called trespassing, and there's laws already, that law is already in effect. So I thought I'd add that to our conversation, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments for our city attorney? That will move to our city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. I did want to announce that the city received a grant from WAMPO for a bicycle pedestrian plan in the amount of $28,800. The city's match will be $7,500, so we're getting the majority of that paid for. I know that we have talked about walking, biking, wayward signs, those types of things. And we have been kind of working on it internally to try to come up with something. But WAMPO had some funds available that they could use for bicycle and pedestrian plans, and so we applied and we received that grant. So we'll be working with them. We'll have to bring some forms for the council to approve and such, but we can actually have a firm do that for us, which would be very nice to have a plan like that. Did also want to mention that, as the mayor stated, the Hot Dogs Pool Party is August 14th, so it's a couple weeks away, and it'll be from 5 to 7 here at the Central Park Pool, and more information will be coming out about that, but be very similar to the ones we've had in the past, very well attended. Brush Side is open next Saturday on the, or not this coming Saturday, but the Saturday after next on the 12th. And then also, I wanted to announce that our city utility clerk, Amy Heilman, has been selected as Employee of the Quarter. She was nominated by a citizen who appreciated her help in a difficult situation she was having with her utility account, and Amy helped to solve that for her, and she was very happy about that and wanted to nominate her as Employee of the Quarter. So I just wanted to let council know that she will receive that honor tomorrow. So that was all I had, Mayor.
Nice. All right, well, thank you for sharing. And with that, we will now move into our one and only action item this evening. And that is establishing a public hearing for Epic Sports. This is for an IRB. And as with all of our IRB applications, public hearing is required. This is to allow property owners and other interested parties to address the city council, gives them that ability to address the city council on the proposed IRB. So if there are any further questions, I want to see if there's a motion to establish a public hearing for the proposed Epic IRB at our next city council meeting, which is scheduled for August the 15th.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Are there questions or comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign. Discussion and future issues. Did want to mention our workshop. We do have a workshop scheduled for August the 8th to start at 6:30. Want to make sure that still worked for everyone's schedule. What we'll talk about is we'll get an update from Law Kingdon on the Parks Master Plan and the Growth Master Plan. We'll also have our conversation about the CDC committee review and finalize the 2018 budget, which will come up then in a future meeting. So does that still work for everybody?
Works for me.
Yep, for me.
All righty. And with that, I know we'd heard from I just want to let you know, talked about our CDC, and they're working on their bylaws. We're going to talk about it. So not until that's done, but at that point, I'd like for the council to consider Paul Dome for that, who had emailed us saying that he wanted to be on a committee to volunteer. And so I called and said, then let's do it. Just a little bit know he's spent 30 years in the corporate world as an accountant at Coke and was the director of logistics at Lovebox. And for the last 10 and a half hours, he's been the executive director. What's that? What did I say?
Years. You said hours.
I'm sorry, 10 and a half years. He's been the executive director over there at his Helping Hands, where they work with over 200 volunteers on a regular basis. And I know that was something we all talked about, was having some people working with volunteers. And he's lived out here in Bel Aire since 1987. But like I said, we'll talk about that after we get everything talked about at our workshop. So, and then with that,
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I have a comment, and this is not to insult any member who considers himself a volunteer, but I'm going to ask for the dissolution of the CDC again, and it may be seconded or not, and it may not come about, and I understand that, because people don't want to feel that they're insulting people. But this city council has asked that committee to do things on Woodlawn on various holidays, and they haven't been done. They've been
we've
done.
already talked about this. I'm sorry.
Well, all right, Mr. Mayor, I have the right to speak. I
I
have
just
the
want
right
to
to.
see anything new to.
Doesn't matter if I have anything new. I'm asking again for the dissolution of that particular committee because they have not done what the council has asked them to do. That's it. And so, because they haven't done that, I'm going to ask that they're dissolved, and if somebody wants to form a new committee, that's fine. If they want to volunteer for another organization, for another committee, that's fine too. But since they haven't done what the council has asked, that's the reason for my motion to dissolve that committee. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So that is a formal motion.
Yes, it
to
is.
dissolve the CDC. Is there a second? Motion fails due to lack of a second. Appreciate your passion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
concerning the Community Development Committee, isn't the president going to be at the next
Yes.
workshop?
Yes.
And we were going to go over the bylaws, because the bylaws are set by council, not by that committee.
Right. We're gonna, yeah, that was the whole talk, make sure, and exactly kind of what Mr. McDonald, or Councilman McDonald said, make sure they're doing what they're supposed to be
Yeah.
doing, so,
May I say something?
yeah.
I think it is going to be a new committee, which is why I don't think we should dissolve it, because I think it's going to be a new committee. I think they're going to have a new mission now, and I think people understand that they have to do more than just sign their name. They have to be there, they have to show up, and really help out with all the events and everything. And so I think sometimes we do things to make corrections, you know, just like when you're raising your children. You don't throw them out, you just make corrections.
It's not good enough.
I mean, might not be a very good
Mandated
analogy.
reporter right here, I just want to put that out there,
But, you know, you work with people.
Right.
That's what it's all about. And so I do think we can work with them. There were some real problems, and as I said, I think our reporter, Taylor, did a very good job of outlining that in the article. And so, it's something we're gonna fix, all of us.
Get us
together.
all on the same page.
Yes.
Is what it's kind of been.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
If I could interject one thing, and I don't know that it needs to be a requirement, but just for me, when someone requests to be on a committee or what have you, you'll remember I objected a little bit to one of your previous people that you had said, had wanted to come on, and he sent a nice resume and what have you, and then he showed up and I met him, and I changed my mind, didn't I? But I would like to see some kind of letter or resume or something when people ask to come on. I think that would be helpful. Not every time do they need to appear or that type of thing. I mean, this gentleman seems like he's highly qualified, but just kind of putting a little order to that.
And I know, and we'd kind of talked a little bit about that because of that same workshop. I know we had a couple members from the Free Board brought up, and that's why I asked if you guys wanted their resume and to talk to them too. So I think we need to have, I like the idea of having kind of a uniform across for
Yeah,
everyone.
no,
so.
but I just think something is helpful, rather than just hearing you click, 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 and what have you. I went, 10 hours, 10 years? So, if you can.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I appreciate what you said. I just want to make sure we are not going to make it so difficult that no one would want to volunteer. I have volunteered in different cities, and I feel like we're almost making the volunteers do more than we, the council, to run for council have to do. So I'm not saying I don't want to know a little bit about them, but I don't think that they have to prepare a resume for us. Maybe just a little sheet fill in, when you move to Bel Aire, a little something easy, because, man, if you guys make it too hard, I don't think people are going to want to volunteer. So that's just my thoughts. So
Balance.
balance,
Fine,
yeah.
I like that.
I don't
All right.
want it to be hard either, but.
I don't either.
Well, I think we can come up with a way that's fair and equitable to everyone. We can absolutely do that, so. Okay.
Well, I would recommend that all the council members get involved and start giving names out for people that have told them in the past or at the grocery store or swimming pool, wherever, that they'd like to be on a committee. Because if you take their name and number and have the mayor talk to them, well, then that's all that needs to be done.
Very good.
Appreciate it. All right. With that, I would entertain a motion. We need a motion to go into executive session for about 10 to 15 minutes. So let's make it 15 minutes then to, this is for the sole purpose of discussing the subject of obtaining legal advice. This is for the negotiation of a contract pursuant to KSA 75-4319 exception. So this is for attorney-client privilege consultation. I'd like to invite the city manager and city attorney in.
So moved, Mayor?
Second.
That work?
Mayor, you can also include when and where the meeting will resume.
Oh, absolutely, yes. So meeting's going to be the period for 15 minutes. And so we will open the meeting at, there was a first or second. So we'll open the meeting here at 8:03 and we will resume at 8:18. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, executive session until 8:18.
Yeah, good.
All right, council just had an executive session. No binding action was taken. Go and call the meeting back to order. Is there any other business to come before council this evening?
Mayor,
Yes.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
First and second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. We'll see you in a week.